Hey y'all, Coach in the Fight here, talking about the fast of the fifth month. This is July the 29th, 2020. So we are approaching the fast of the fifth month here pretty rapidly. And so in this video, I want to take the time to let you know exactly when this holiday or holy day, if you want to call it, will begin and end. What should we be doing on these days? And what we can expect if there is any change to take place during these days. We are talking about the 9th or the 10th of Av 2020. This could very well be a special day, considering Daniel's prophecy and how in Daniel chapter 12 he pointed out the year 2020. We've done several videos on this, as we are still yet the only channel that is talking about Daniel chapter 12 and unlocking the 1,333 day and the 1,290 day prophecies. I believe we are still the only channel who has figured this out, because we have learned to make the disconnect between the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. Daniel was told in verse 9 and even back there in verse 4 that he would not get any prophecies within the tribulation. His prophecies will lead up to the tribulation, but none of what he saw pertains within the tribulation. And so as people try to make the connection between the 1,260 days of Revelations and the 1,290 days of Daniel, they're going off track. Those two have really nothing to do with each other. Like I said, we've done several videos on this, so I don't want to go into much detail about this prophecy other than to just show you how it is actually pointing to the year 2020. You see right there in verse 11 where it's talking about the daily sacrifice being taken away. That was done so in the year 606 BC. In 606 BC, Nebuchadnezzar took away the daily sacrifice and took it into Babylon. You remember all of those golden goblets that his son was drinking out of when he saw the handwriting on the wall? Those were part of the daily sacrifice that was taken into Babylon in 606. And so when you add these 1,290 days or these 1,290 years, you end up in 685 AD, which is when they built the Dome of the Rock on the same Temple Mount. What Daniel is telling us is that at the beginning of this prophecy is when they burned the temple down. In the middle of this prophecy, at 1,290 days, they actually replaced that temple with the Dome of the Rock. But then when you look at verse 12, he says that there is a blessing coming for those who wait to the 1,335 days. So when you add 1,335 years from the year 685, you end up with 2020. And because the Bible is so accurate and so precise, when he says after the daily sacrifice, we'll add this amount of years, we have to wait till after that same day of the month that the daily sacrifice was taken away, that we will receive a blessing. And we see right here in Jeremiah chapter 52 and verse 12 that it was on the 10th day of the month that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, burned the house of the Lord. So beginning on the 10th day of the fifth month, the year 2020, we can start to expect something to take place within the third temple. That temple that's supposed to be built on the hearts of humanity, or maybe even that brick and mortar temple that man is trying to build over there in Jerusalem. Beginning on the 10th day of the 9th month, we should start to keep our ears and our eyes open for something to fulfill this prophecy that Daniel talking about. It's supposed to be some type of blessing, which could be something over there in Jerusalem, but I believe that it's talking about the true third temple that will be built on the hearts of humanity. So when is the 10th day of the month? When is the 10th day of the fifth month? When you go over to Google and type in 10th of Av, it doesn't give you a date. It's really only talking about the 9th of Av. So back over here at Bible Gateway, looking for all of the times in the King James Version of the Bible where the phrase fifth month is along with the word day, you'll see that there are only 11 times mentioned in the Bible. But then when we try to look for the word ninth, as in the ninth day of the 10th month, we find that there are no times that the ninth day of the 10th month is actually listed in the Bible. But then when we look at the 10th day, we see that there are times that the 10th day is listed. Once in Jeremiah chapter 52 and verse 12, when it's talking about the temple being burned by Nebuchadnezzar, and in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 20, verse 1, you see the 10th day of the month mentioned. So when exactly does this Tisha Aviv, or the fast of the fifth month, start? Well, for those who are counting it to start on the ninth day of Av, it will start on the evening after the sun goes down on July the 29th. For those that will be celebrating on the 10th day of Av, it will start on the evening of July the 30th. Me personally, I will start celebrating on July the 29th, and I won't end until the evening of July the 31st. Now, what is it that I'll be doing on those days? Fasting. Because when you look over in Jeremiah chapter 36, verse 9, Zechariah chapter 7, verse 5, and Zechariah chapter 8, verse 19, it's talking about the fast of the fifth month. That's what they're talking about when they say Tisha Aviv, the fast of the fifth month. So the real question is, what is a fast? And to understand what a fast is, we have to jump over to Isaiah chapter 58. Isaiah chapter 58 is all about fasting. You see down there in verse 5, it says, "Is this a fast that I have chosen?" First of all, the Father is going to tell us that our fasting has been incorrect. I don't know about you, but I was taught that fasting has something to do with abstaining from food. But then when you look over here in the book of Isaiah chapter 58, you'll see that it has nothing to do with abstaining from food, but it has more to do with what we see over here in verses 6 and verses 7 of Isaiah 58. In other words, Isaiah chapter 58 verses 6 and 7 is what a fast truly means. And this is what we should be doing on Tisha Aviv. He says, "Is this not the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, and to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke?" This is what he wants us doing during the fast. Not only the fast of the fifth month, but the fast of the seventh month as well, which is Atonement Day. He says in verse 7, "Is it not to deal the bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out into thy house? When thou seest the naked, to cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh?" This is what we are supposed to be doing during the fast of the fifth month. This is what we are supposed to be doing during Tisha Aviv. Feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, housing the homeless, helping people, doing charitable deeds. If you look on further down in the chapter of Isaiah chapter 58, you can see the many, many blessings associated with performing this fast correctly. That's how this chapter started off. It was like the people were complaining that they were getting no benefit from all of their fasting. And then he went on and told them that they were fasting incorrectly and told them what a proper fast looks like. And then he starts to explain to them the blessings that they will get from doing this fast correctly. We done an entire class on this not too long ago, so check out that video to get more information on how it is that we are all supposed to fast. There will be a link to it at the end of this video. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about in this video is what to expect when we receive that blessing that Daniel is talking about over here in chapter 12. You see right there it says, "Blessed is he that waiteth." So what kind of blessings can we expect? Well, for that, we have to go earlier in the book of Daniel chapter 12 and look at what was being talked about leading up to that prophecy, that timeline prophecy. It's talking about Michael, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. It's talking about how he's going to stand up in that time. Even though it shall be a time of great trouble, it's saying that Michael is going to deliver his people out of that trouble. At least everyone found written in the book of life. Now, there's a lot of people who associate this with the rapture, because you see how in verse 12 it says, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. This is the same thing talked about over there in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, when it's saying that the dead shall rise first. This is also what's being mentioned over in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. So could the rapture occur on the 9th or the 10th day of Av? Well, anything's possible, but I think what Daniel is telling us is that these events will happen after the fast of the 5th month. So this is the kind of stuff that we should be looking for. What's being talked about there in verse 2, where he says awaken, this is talking about our conscious awakening. That's why it says some shall awake to shame and some to everlasting contempt, is because of the bearing that our conscience will have on us during that time. We can ignore our consciences now, but that's going to be the change. We're not going to be able to ignore our conscience after our third eye is opened. He continues to tell them some of the things that will happen during this period down there in verse 10. He says, and many shall be purified and made white and tried. Like we said, it's going to be a time of trouble, and this trouble is what's going to purify people. He goes on to say, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand. This is the King James Version of the Bible, but what he's talking about wicked is those that don't obey the law, the covenant over there in Exodus chapter 20 through 23. Those are transgressors of the law, which in this translation are called wicked. He says that they're not going to understand. But let me show you another place in the scripture where it says the same thing, just a little bit differently, and that's over here in the Third Testament of the Bible in chapter 3 and verse 27. This is also talking about the same events in 1 Corinthians, the same in 1 Thessalonians, and over there in Daniel chapter 12, and even in the book of Revelation and chapter 8 and other places. This event that many call the Great Awakening of our conscience, that time when it says everybody shall see me. You see right here in chapter 3 of the Third Testament of the Bible, it says, if I told you in time past, every eye shall see me, I made you understand that all of you would know the truth. So that's important to understand what he means by every eye shall see. He's not talking about our material eyeballs, but our spiritual eyeballs, as we will understand the truth. Understand and know the truth. But watch this part right here. He says, yet I must tell you that I shall limit myself according to the evolution of each spirit. That's a big deal, guys. That's saying that the ones of us who are the most prepared will have the most manifestation of ecstasy or passion, which is the definition of the word rapture. What this is saying is that the ones of us who have been obedient to the law and performing charitable deeds, they are the ones who will be the most exalted to a knowledge of divine things, which is the most commonly understood meaning of the word rapture, which other people just refer to as the Great Awakening, a mystical experience in which the spirit is exalted to a knowledge of divine things. This is what we can expect to see. So when we're looking at some of these events to take place, sure, they may blow up a building or two over there in Jerusalem, but when it comes to the third temple that's on our hearts, this is what we can expect as far as the construction of that third temple. An exaltation of our spirits. Back over here at the Third Testament of the Bible, it says, but as you ascend in the ladder of perfection, you will behold me in all my splendor. So that everybody is going to understand this to the same degree. And that's what's going to lend to all of the confusion, even many of the hardships, as there is a debate on what's really going on. Those that have ascended the ladder and have spiritually evolved will understand what's going on, While, like Daniel says over here in chapter 12, the others will not understand, and so there's going to be a lot of conflict. The bad part about it is that many of those who won't understand are the most materialistic people in the world, and a lot of times they are our bosses, or our judges, or the police officers, or the other people in charge. So you can imagine. Let me add this part in when it comes to looking for things that we are supposed to be doing. One of the things that we learn over in the Third Testament of the Bible is that we don't necessarily have to go look for ways to be charitable. We don't have to necessarily go look for the homeless. He says that he puts these people in our path. So beginning on every day, but especially the evening of the 29th, all the way up to the evening of the 31st, we should be looking for these opportunities that the Father puts in our path for us to perform charitable deeds. Somebody may show up at our door needing something, or we may pass somebody on the road that's in trouble. There's no telling what kind of opportunity the Father can give us to do charitable deeds. But my point is that he gives us these opportunities. He intentionally puts this kind of stuff in our path just so we can do these charitable deeds to get us the credit that we need. So look for those opportunities is probably the main thing that we could be doing, is just keeping our eyes open and taking advantage of the opportunities that our Father gives us. Well, I'm running out of power here, so I'm going to have to end this a little bit abruptly. I'll cover some more as we go along, so hit that subscribe button or that bell notification button so you can see those classes when they come out. Hit the like button if you got something out of this video, and please leave a comment. Shalom.